People often ask me, hey Keon, how is it that you get to do this for a living? How is it that you wake up every day and you just get on a camera or you get behind a keyboard, you write about Real Madrid, you record some silly videos and podcasts, and that's what you do? How is it that you follow Real Madrid all around the planet, wherever they go? You go to the games at the Bernabeu, Sid Press Row, you go to the away games, you go to preseason games, you get to do all these cool live podcasts around the world. You get to run the largest Real Madrid podcast in the world. You get to make all these cool connections. You get to meet all these cool people. How is that possible? And believe it or not, it's not the ones who have followed my work for the last few months or who have followed my work for the past 4 or 5 years, let's say. The ones who are most shocked at the fact that I do this, it's the ones that I grew up with, the ones who knew me from the beginning. Believe it or not, I was incredibly terrified of public speaking, and now I can't go a day without it. If I'm not physically in a room talking to 100 people, then I actually don't know what I'm doing with myself. I feel a little bit lost. And as you can imagine, that's part of the reason why the pandemic was so difficult for me. And, there are people who had way worse problems than me in the pandemic. But what I was missing really was just the crowds and talking to people, because it was something that I really grew into and got momentum with. And now I'm loving it. And the ones who knew me from the beginning knew that I wasn't really that comfortable public speaking. What they did know about me was I was this crazy person who talked about Real Madrid all the time. And I was like the only one in my little neighborhood who actually cared about Real Madrid. So they knew I had that crazy side of me, but the fact that I'd be doing this maybe is a bit shocking. Little known fact about me. I grew up in a little small town in Nova Scotia. And that's on the east coast of Canada. Beautiful place, but it's not somewhere you'd pinpoint on the earth. But like, that guy over there in that town is going to be a Real Madrid journalist one day. But I did it. And I did it without any connections. I knew no one in Madrid. I had no connections within the club. I knew nothing about journalism. I never took a journalism degree. I was a terrible writer. I was a bad public speaker. I couldn't do this. I couldn't get behind a camera even by myself. And from that point to now was a long journey, about 10 years, where I made a ton of mistakes. Let me tell you a bit about myself. So around 2010, 2012 range, really earlier than that it started, I actually went to university. I took an undergrad in psychology, and it was fine. I kind of wanted to be a child psychologist at that point because I kind of resonated with the idea of helping kids at the grassroots level and helping alleviate some of the pain in the world. But the main problem with me was that I was terrible at school. And by the time I graduated, I realized that if I wanted to be a child psychologist, I needed another 10 years of school, master's, PhD, etc., open up my clinic. It was a lot of years off my life and a lot of money. And at the same time, I just was bad at school. It's not like my grades were amazing. And that's partly my fault. One was I was a bad student, partly because I didn't care about the subject enough. And two, because my entire life was circled around Real Madrid. So I would wake up every day, I would check the Real Madrid news, and I would go on these forums online, because back then, again, there wasn't very few people in my city that wanted to talk about this stuff. And so a lot of it would be online. And then I would play pickup football, I would play some pickup basketball, and I would not study. I would just basically watch Real Madrid games. My entire university courses and my class schedule was revolved around making sure none of them conflicted on the Tuesday/Wednesday Champions League games, just in case Real Madrid games would fall on that day. That's what I revolved my life around. And there was an aha moment somewhere in there where I was like, hold on a second. If I'm just doing all of this stuff and I don't really care about school and I don't care about, pursuing a master's and a PhD, I'm not good at this stuff, I'm not the greatest academic guy, why don't I just try to make a living out of talking about Real Madrid? Seems absurd, right? Well, I did it. What started was I basically sent a bunch of publications, from big famous publications to little known blogs. And I was like, hey, I'm just this guy. This is what I want to do. Can I write for you? I would either get no response or I would get a response saying no. And I was like, well, I was frustrated. It was like, how do people get in this industry? I knew nothing. So what I did was I started a blog, and it was actually a Toronto Raptors blog. It wasn't a Real Madrid blog. It was a Raptors blog called Raptors Watch. I was also a huge, and still am a huge, Toronto Raptors fan. And I started writing. I was terrible at it. Going back and reading some of those articles is pretty bad, kind of cringe, but at the same time, you got to start somewhere. I somehow amassed a social media following for this blog and started to generate a lot of hits. it became popular where it was to the point where people started submitting applications to my silly website and was like, hey, we're a Raptors fan. We want to write about the team. Can we work for you? And I was like, look, I got no money and this is just a silly website. If you want to contribute, go ahead, but I can't pay you. And I got some great writers. Like, you wouldn't even believe somehow I attracted, like, I won't necessarily name them, but two of them, one of them works for The Athletic now and is one of the greatest basketball minds of our time. And another one went on to work for Sportsnet and the actual Raptors official club. So they look, the point of the story is that we all start somewhere, right? Over time, I actually got press credentials with this blog, and then it was a lot of work to sustain it. So instead of actually just maintaining the blog, what I did was I sent my work to Raptors Republic, which is an ESPN True Hoop network affiliate. And I started working for Raptors Republic for a little bit. And I was actually writing for Raptors Republic and also writing about Real Madrid at the same time for Managing Madrid. Because around the same time, I emailed Lucas Navarrete, who is the chief editor of Managing Madrid, and I said, hey, this is my work. I write about basketball mostly, but would you be okay if I wrote about Real Madrid? Because that's my true passion. And he said, sure. And at that point, there was no money coming in for me. Like, I wasn't getting paid for that. Fast forward, 7 years later, and that's obviously changed for me, but that's how I started. There was no money involved at that time. And since then, I've learned a lot about marketing and how to monetize my content and monetize our content and collaborating and making sure we all lift each other up and all make money. But at the time, I didn't know anything about this stuff. So that's how it started. Now, long story short, that was 2015. Now it's 2022. I've been able to monetize my content. I've been able to do my dream job. I wake up every day with nothing on my mind except for what content am I creating today? What am I writing about today? What part of my book am I working on today? I have a huge Real Madrid book coming out. And basically things like this particular video was just a spur of the moment, like, hey, I'm going to share this and I want to help people, okay? The purpose of this video is not just to share my story. It's to help you guys. So now I'm going to tell another story, and you might resonate with it. Let's call him Joe. Joe is someone who is an avid sports fan. He loves his sports team, and he wants to do that for a living. He sees people like me and people who are way above me, and they say, wow, that's so cool that they get to do that. I want to do that. So what does Joe do? Well, Joe has to pay the bills primarily because he can't just quit his job and start talking about sports. What Joe does is he works 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 3 to 10, whatever the hours are. And he does that job, not necessarily because he wants to or likes it, but because he has to pay the bills. Understandable. Of course, Joe's got to do what he needs to do to pay the bills. Joe has this all mapped out. Like, okay, when I come home from work at 5, I'm going to create content and I'm going to work on this stuff. Now, what's the problem there? Nothing inherently, but realistically speaking, is that sustainable? No, because Joe comes home from work and he's tired. What else you got to do in those, 5, 6, 7 hours before bedtime? You got to eat, you got to cook, you got to eat healthy, you got to go to the gym. You want downtime, so you need to have time to turn your brain off and create and be creative. You can't do that. By the time you actually sit down and do some content, either your content is going to suffer, you're going to be too tired, you're going to say, I'll do it tomorrow, or you're going to let other areas of your life suffer, like the gym, like your health, like your errands, or whatever it is. You can't immerse yourself in 10 different things. Really, the best way to do is you have to immerse yourself in one thing, get good at that, sustain it, and then move on to the next thing and add it to your arsenal. So if that story resonates with you, I'm here to help you. And you'd be amazed at the amount of emails I get, about messages on social media I get. I actually had to shut down my Twitter DMs and Facebook DMs years ago because I was just getting way too many things of like, hey, Keon, I need some advice. My emails have been open this whole time and I get flooded, and it's all the same stuff. Generic stuff. Hey, Keon, can you help me? I want to break in the industry. We have any suggestions? And I generally don't reply, or if I reply, I don't really give much advice in that situation. Why? Is it because I'm an asshole or I'm a narcissist? No, you may think so. But the reason is because I can't do anyone justice. If I'm replying to one person with just quick something, I can't give someone advice in an email to sustain their whole career. So Out of this came my mentorship program. My mentorship program is something that I designed so that I can actually systematize all these emails I'm getting so that I can actually help people. So while it took me 7 to 10 years to get to where I am today, I can help people get to where they need to be within a year, less than a year. 2 examples of people who have gone through my mentorship program in the last year. One of them works for an MLS team now and is one of the leading people in that field with which they're working. And another one actually now has one of the bigger Real Madrid platforms out there. And I won't mention who because I'm not sure if they're comfortable knowing that people wanting to know that they went to my mentorship program, although maybe they do, I don't care, but just in case. But I help people get to their stage within a year instead of 10 years of setting their goals. For me, it was actually 1 year for a specific goal. In 2015, I set a goal. I was like, okay, I'm going to be sitting press row at the Bernabeu within a year. And that was at a time in 2015 when I haven't even written a single piece of Real Madrid content yet. And I actually achieved that goal, I think, in less than 1 year. So I've been able to figure out year to year how to accelerate processes and accelerate results. And the reason I'm telling you this today is because I actually, a few months ago, I actually had to stop my mentorship program because that was getting overwhelming because I was going with clients one-on-one. I was literally booking 1 hour of time for each client once per week, 6 sessions, and my entire day was filled up because of that. I couldn't do any work. I couldn't really properly take care of myself in order to take care of my clients, so I had to put an end to it. And I said I'd reopen in the summertime. So here I am reopening it in the summertime. This video is basically a launch pad to that. But I'm going to design it in a different way. I'm going to set up group calls. So I actually have an announcement. On June 22nd, we're going to have a webinar where you log on to Zoom. I'm going to give a 2 to 3 hour talk on everything I know about journalism. Things that they don't teach you in journalism school, and I know this for the fact because now I know what is taught in journalism school. How to market yourself, how to brand yourself. People think it's about content. It's not about content. It's about storytelling and branding. That's all that matters. And it's not to say that content doesn't matter and quality of content doesn't matter. I believe in that, and I think if you read my work and you've seen the amount of thought and research and time I put in my articles and my content, you know that I truly believe in that. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who are some of the most brilliant writers you'll ever see, but you'll never know their name because they don't know how to market themselves. And quite frankly, they've actually refused to market themselves because they feel ashamed to do so, or they feel they're being narcissistic. Couldn't be farther from the truth. It's actually narcissistic and egotistical not to market yourself because now you're not sharing what you know with the world. So you got to learn how to position yourself and market yourself. So I teach you how to market yourself. 2, how to monetize, how to build social funnels and integrate all these people into a funnel, which ultimately can enable you to monetize your content. 3, networking. What does networking really mean? How do you network with people without creeping them out? How do you talk to people who are quote unquote above you? And what does it really mean to network? I also talk about that. I talk about the different pillars you need to have to be a journalist. Think about how much I had to go through and endure to go from being someone who's terrified of public speaking to doing something like this. It took a lot. I actually give you exercises and go through the process with you, hold you by the hand and say, okay, these are the exercises you need to do. If you're shy, you can't be shy being a journalist, basically. So if you came into this mentorship program thinking, well, I'm just going to be a writer, I'm not going to be on camera anyway, fine. But I'm here to tell you right now, that's not necessarily going to work for you if you want to break in the industry. So I actually give you exercises to get you out of your comfort shell and also become comfortable in front of a camera and thus become comfortable in crowds, because if you're not, how are you going to sit in a press conference and ask Zinedine Zidane a question in a press conference? You can't do it unless you're comfortable in social settings. So I actually give you exercises to break through those barriers. The same exercises that I had to go through to get to where I am today, I give you those as well. Now, here's the other thing. People mistake being a journalist as for something that's actually fun. Journalism can be extremely fun if it's on your own terms. If you're working for someone doing Associated Press articles that are generic, you feel ashamed to even put your name on it, it's just news, then journalism is not for you, or you need to get out of that part of journalism. Unless it's something you really like to do, then that's for you. But if you're more interested in creating content that's fresh, that gives people a different perspective, something you really believe in, that's away from the generic stuff and away from the sensationalism and tabloid stuff, and you want to actually contribute value to society through your work, then I'm here to help you with that too. So if you want to get on the call on June 22nd, I'm giving you plenty of heads up, plenty of time to think about this. There is a link you can click in the bio, in the caption of this video, and you can click on that, fill out the form. You will automatically go on the email list. We'll put your seat aside, your virtual seat aside, that is, and we will get you on the call. So put it aside. If you're interested in breaking through in this industry and you want to avoid mistakes that I've made over the course of 10 years, you want to accelerate your path, you want to monetize your content, you want to learn what to do, what not to do, then reserve your spot in the call by clicking that link and making sure your spot is reserved. And the other thing I'll say is this. We live in an age now where it's easier than ever to break through the industry, but it's only easy if you know what the hell you're doing. No longer do you have to work for The Athletic, ESPN, The Guardian, New York Times, whoever I'm missing. All you need to do is be able to create content, create a cult following, and then monetize. And then bang, and then you go when you upward spiral, and you're on your way. If you want help doing that, click the link in the caption. Do it now. Don't waste your time. What do you have to lose? You can either take a leap or you can go through your everyday life wishing you were on this side of the fence. Having fun, traveling the world, talking about what you love for a living, and it's not work. It doesn't feel like work. I don't have a job. I just have fun. So if that's something that interests you, I'm here to help. Love to work with you. Fill out the form, and we'll see you on the inside June 22nd. You got plenty of time to think about this, and we'll see.